Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 1, The Advent of Lord Krishna, Introduction. Text number 42. Yato yato dhavati daiva choditam. Yato yato dhavati daiva choditam. Mano vikara atmakam apa panchasu. Mano vikaratmakam apa panchasu guneshu maya rachiteshu dehi asau. Guneshu maya rachiteshu dehi asau. Prapadyamanaha saha tena jayate. Prapadyamanas saha tena jayate. Yato yato dhavati daiva choditam. Mano vikaratmakama panchasu. Guneshu maya rachiteshu deshyaso. Prapadyamanas sahatena jayate. Yato yato dhavati daiva choditam. Mano vikaratmakama papanchasu. Guneshu maya rachiteshu deshyaso. Prapadyamanas sahatena jayate. Yato yato dhavati daiva choditam. Mano vikaratmakama papanchasu. Guneshu maya rachiteshu deshyaso. Prapadyamanas sahatena jayate. Yato yato dhavati daiva choditam. Mano vikaratmakama papanchasu. Guneshu maya rachiteshu deshyaso. Prapadyamanas sahatena jayate. Yataha yataha. From one place to another, or from one position to another. Dhavati speculates. Daiva choditam. Impelled by accident or deliberation. Manaha, the mind. Vikara atmakam. Changing from one type of thinking, feeling and willing to another. Apa, at the end, he obtains a mentality. Panchasu, at the time of death, when the material body turns totally into matter. Guneshu, the mind, not being liberated, becomes attached to the material qualities. Maya rachiteshu, where the material energy creates a similar body. Dehi, the spirit soul who accepts such a body. So he prapadyamanaha, being surrendered to such a condition, saha, with tena, a similar body, jayate, takes birth. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Translation. At the time of death, according to the thinking, feeling, and willing of the mind is involved in fruitive activities, one receives a particular body. In other words, the body develops according to the activities of the mind. Changes of body are due to the flickering of the mind, for otherwise, the soul could remain in its original spiritual body. Please repeat this translation after me. At the time of death, according to the thinking, feeling, and willing of the mind, which is involved in fruitive activities, one receives a particular body. In other words, the body develops according to the activities of the mind. Changes of body are due to the flickering of the mind, for otherwise, the soul could remain in its original spiritual body. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. One can very easily understand that the mind is constantly flickering, changing in the quality of its thinking, feeling, and willing. This is explained by Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita 6.34. Chanchalam hi manah Krishna pramathi balavad dhrudam tasyaham nigraham manye vayoriva sudushkaram. The mind is chanchala, flickering, and it changes very strongly. Therefore, Arjuna admitted that controlling the mind is not at all possible. This would be as difficult as controlling the wind. For example, if one were in a boat moving according to the wind on a river or the sea, and the wind were uncontrollable, the tilting boat would be very much disturbed and extremely difficult to control. It might even capsize. Therefore, in the Bhava Samudra, the ocean of mental speculation and transmigration to different types of bodies, one must first control the mind. By regulative practice, one can control the mind. And this is the purpose of the yoga system. Abhyasa yoga yuktena. But there is a chance of failure with the yoga system, especially in this age of Kali, because the yoga system uses artificial means. If the mind is engaged in bhakti yoga, however, by the grace of Krishna, one can very easily control it. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has recommended Harer Nama, Harer Nama, Harer Namaiva Kevalam. One should chant the holy name of the Lord constantly, for the holy name of the Lord is not different from Hari, the Supreme Person. By chanting the Hare Krishna mantra constantly, one can fix the mind on the lotus feet of Krishna. Savai Manah Krishna Padara Vindayo. And in this way achieve the perfection of yoga. Otherwise, the flickering mind will hover on the platform of mental speculation for sense enjoyment, and one will have to transmigrate from one type of body to another. Because the mind is trained only in relation to the material elements, or in other words, to sense gratification, which is false. Maya sukhaya bharam udvahato vimudhan. Bhagavatam 7.9.43. Rascals, vimudhan, being controlled by mental speculation, make huge arrangements by which to enjoy life temporarily. But they must give up the body at the time of death when everything is taken away by Krishna's external energy. Mrityu sarva haraschaham. At that time, whatever one has created in this life is lost, and one must automatically accept a new body by the force of material nature. In this life, one may have constructed a very tall skyscraper, but in the next life, because of one's mentality, one may have to accept a body like that of a cat, a dog, a tree, or perhaps a demigod. Thus, the body is offered by the laws of material nature. Karanam gunasangosya sadasadyoni janmasu. Bhagavad Gita 13.22. The spirit soul takes birth in higher and lower species of life only because of its association with the three qualities of material nature. Urdhvam gachanti sattvastha, madhye tishtanti rajasa, jaghanya gunavrittistha, adho gachanti tamasa. Those situated in the mode of goodness gradually go upward to the higher planets. Those in the mode of passion live on the earthly planets. And those in the mode of ignorance go down to the hellish worlds. Bhagavad Gita 14.18. In conclusion, the Krishna consciousness movement offers the topmost welfare activity for human society. The saner section of human society must therefore take this movement very seriously for the benefit of all humanity. To save oneself from the repetition of birth and death, one must purify his consciousness. Sarvopadhi vinirmuktam tat paratvena nirmalam. One must be freed from all designations. I am American, I am Indian, I am this, I am that. And come to the platform of understanding that Krishna is the original master and we are his eternal servants. When the senses are purified and engaged in Krishna's service, one achieves the highest perfection. Rishikena, Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Ruchate. The Krishna conscious movement is a movement of Bhakti Yoga. Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga. By following the principles of this movement, one becomes disassociated from material mental concoction and is established on the original platform of the eternal relationship between the living entity and the Supreme Personality of Godhead as servant and master. This, in summary, is the purpose of the Krishna consciousness movement. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityanand Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. These are words spoken by Vasudeva. He is speaking to Kamsa. He is trying to appeal to Kamsa's intelligence, explaining trying to explain what is the proper understanding of the self. Because if we understand I am not this body, and death means it only applies to the body, not to me, then immediately my problem of death and other miseries of material life are completely solved. Immediately. Hmm? How immediately can it happen? The example is given in the scriptures. Just like we have experience, night when we're sleeping, we might be seeing or experiencing one dream. Now, if somebody wakes up from the dreaming condition, if in the dream there was a very, very bad experience, whatever the bad experience might be, however bad it might be, as soon as one wakes up, immediately the misery is finished. Exactly like this, Krishna consciousness wakes us up from this dreaming material condition. Now, dream we understand, dreaming at night. Very easily we can connect with it. At least as human beings we understand. But daytime we think this is our real life. But actually, because we are mistakenly thinking in terms of this body, and all our activities are centered around the misunderstanding that I am this body, therefore this is not our real life. Our real life is centered around I am spirit soul, and as spirit soul I am always connected with Krishna, the supreme spirit soul. As servant is related to the master. So this understanding, this realization, this conception of the self is called Krishna consciousness. Jivera Swaruphoi Krishnera Nitya Das. This is our Swarupa, this is our eternal situation, that we are always eternally servant of Krishna. Now, servant does not mean like servant in this material world. No. Servant in the material world means because I am lacking something or because I want some favor, therefore I engage in serving some master who I think can give me what I want. Spiritual servant is different. Spiritual servant is Krishna is the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Father, the Supreme Well-wisher, the Supreme Maintainer, the Supreme Provider, everything. And I serve Him simply out of love. Simply out of love. Exactly like in the material world, when a child is just born, the child is totally dependent on the mother for everything. And therefore, the mother completely takes care of the child. And the mother does not make any calculation, does not think, why should I serve the child? No. The position of the child is such that it is totally dependent on the mother. And the mother, because the child is totally dependent, or otherwise even, the mother will completely take care of the child. And the child also responds to the mother again out of a bonding of love. So much so that, especially when the child is very young and completely dependent, if the mother is not present in front of the child, immediately the child starts crying for the mother. And even though the child may be provided for or pacified by somebody else other than the mother, the child will not agree or accept anyone else other than the mother. So that is exactly our position. That who are we? We are very, very, very tiny, insignificant jiva. And only Krishna can actually provide us what we want, especially the love we are seeking. Just like in this example of the child and the mother, even though there may be others who may also love the child, but who loves the child the most? It is the mother. And that is by constitution. It is not by some choice. It is not by choice. It is by the way the child is made. Especially when the child is born, it is born out of the mother's womb. So the source of the child, at least the body of the child, is the mother's own body. So there is a very, very, very intimate relationship, connection, dependence, total dependence on the mother. Now, when the child is just born, it can't even drink some other milk. It has to drink the mother's milk. So there is no question of somebody else can also provide the child what the mother provides. No. There is no possibility. If at all some arrangement is made, it is not the best arrangement. It is not the original arrangement. Original arrangement is mother provides for the child everything the child requires. And most importantly, more than the other material things, the child actually is feeling a sense of security and warmth from the mother, which cannot be substituted. So this example is a very nice example for us to understand what is the kind of relationship we have with the Supreme Lord, each one of us as spirit soul. Don't think in terms of this body. When you understand your spirit soul, then your relationship is originally only with Krishna. But then, just like the child's example, again, coming back to the child's example, because the mother is not in isolation for the child, there are other family members, there are other connections the mother has with other people. So there is a relationship of the child through the mother with the father, with the brother, with the sister, with the aunt. All other relationships the mother has with anybody, automatically some relationship becomes similarly established for the child, for the newborn child. So like that, We have relationship with others as spirit soul only through Krishna. Only through Krishna. So, therefore, this understanding that I am spirit soul, and not just, it doesn't stop at that, I am spirit soul. The Mayavadis, one class of philosophers, impersonal philosophers particularly, they think if you realize your spirit soul, that's enough, that's the end. No, that is just the beginning of realization of the truth. You have to go further and understand the position of yourself as spirit soul in relationship or connection with everything or everyone else. That is very important. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains He is the Supreme Lord. He is the center of everything. Everything is His. Everything belongs to Him. Everything is connected with Him. Everything is dependent on Him. Everything is sourced from Him. Everything is controlled by Him. Everything is meant for Him. So with that understanding, immediately we can establish particularly our relationship with Krishna, and through Krishna our relationship with everything else. So now coming to the point of the mind, here particularly at the time of death, what happens? That's being discussed here. According to the thinking, feeling and willing of the mind, one has developed a particular type of mentality. And that mentality at the time of death decides or makes us eligible to leave this body when the term of residence in this body is finished and we have to go enter another body. So the next body is exactly dependent on the mentality at the time of death. So that mentality at the time of death is dependent on how we develop this mentality by the activities of the mind. What are the activities of the mind? So analyzing, just like the bodily activities we can easily understand, eating, sleeping, walking, working, different types of work we can do with the hands, with the legs, or even we work with our mind, with our intelligence, with our ego. We work with others in a team effort. So like this, working or activities, we have a broader understanding than just merely some senses of action engaged in some sense activity. More than that, we have a broader understanding. Similarly, the mind also, there are activities of the mind. Just like in Bhagavad Gita, it is explained, every action we perform has got a reaction. Now, actions or activities we perform not only with the body, but also we perform activities through our words, speaking, and through the mind, through thinking, feeling, and willing. We are performing activities, mental activities. So verbal activities, the activity of speech, then mental activities, activities of the mind, and physical activities, activities of the body. Body, words, and mind. Kaya, vacha, manasa. All the three types of activities give us result in some reactions, and therefore most important is not just the activities of the body or even activities of speech for deciding what type of body I am going to get next. The next body, my next body is dependent on, in my present life, what are my activities of the mind. Because activities of the mind is going to develop, I am developing my mentality. So whatever activities I do in this body from the birth up to the point of death, all those activities are shaping my mentality. So Prabhupada says, the nature of the mind generally in this material world is flickering. That means constantly changing. Constantly changing. Why? Because the mind is material. Everything material changes. Matter is constantly changing. Why is matter changing? Because it's acted upon by the gunas, the material modes. Just like this table is changing. In what way is it changing? It is deteriorating. Why is it deteriorating? Because of the action of material nature. Anything material, we can understand easily. This building, it is deteriorating because of the action of the nature. Nature means which part of nature? The three gunas, sattva guna, rajo guna, tamo guna. So the modes are influencing, or modes are changing everything material. This is explained by Krishna very nicely in the Bhagavad Gita in a very, very concise way. Adibhutam ksharo bhavaha. Adibhutam means this material manifestation. Ksharo bhavaha. It has got a particular characteristic. What is that? It is constantly changing. It is constantly changing. Why is it constantly changing? Because constantly it is acted upon by the gunas. Constantly acted upon by the gunas. So our mind, as much as this body is made up of matter, that is not difficult to understand. Elementary spiritual knowledge, anybody can understand this body is material. Okay. The mind is also material. But the mind is a different kind of matter. It is subtle matter. It is not gross matter. So gross matter is subject to changes which we can easily perceive. But this mind, subtle matter, it is also changing, but we cannot perceive the change very easily. We cannot perceive the change very easily. So, this mind also, just like this body, is constantly changing because of the influence of the gunas. So, Prabhupada says, if you want to stop this repetition of birth and death, that means I have entered this body, then By my activities, I am preparing my next body. If I don't perform spiritual activities, then my next body is going to be material body. If I'm engaged in material activities, my next body will be a material body, another material body. So, to stop this repetition of birth and death, I have to change my activities. And what kind of activities I must do? I must do spiritual activities. And which spiritual activity is most important? The activities of the mind. Because as Bhagavad Gita explains to us, there are activities of the mind, there are activities of speech, there are activities of the body, physical activities. So of these three, the activities of the mind are most important. So the activity of the mind, what are the activities of the mind? There are three kinds of activities. This is also analyzed in the Chaitanya Charitamrita very nicely. Thinking, feeling and willing. Thinking, feeling and willing. There are three kinds of activity, three categories of activities of the mind. Mind, when it is said mind, it means the subtle body. Subtle body, even though subtle body is one and is generally called the mind, but there are three departments of this subtle body called mind, intelligence and false ego. Manas, buddhi, ahankara. These are three elements, subtle elements. Manas, buddhi, ahankara. Together they form the subtle body. And the subtle body is actually influenced by the three gunas as much as this gross body is influenced, or as much as anything material is influenced. So the subtle body, manas, buddhi, ahankara, has got three kinds of activities. Thinking, feeling and willing. Now exactly how the thinking, feeling and willing is happening is very complicated to understand in the Sankhya philosophy explained by Lord Kapila in the 3rd canto of the Bhagavatam. This is very systematically, scientifically explained. But without getting into those details, if we just understand that the activities of the mind, the activities of thinking, feeling and willing, if they are changed to spiritual thinking, spiritual feeling, spiritual willing, then my entire mentality becomes spiritual. Then at the time of death, by the time death comes, if I have practiced spiritual thinking, spiritual feeling, spiritual willing, then my mentality becomes spiritual. If my mentality is spiritual at the time of death, then I quit this body and I don't enter another material body. In my original spiritual body, I go back to Godhead. I go to the spiritual world. I go to Krishna Loka. I am reinstated in my relationship with Krishna in his personal association. So that is the purpose or the mission of this Krishna consciousness movement, as Prabhupada says at the end of the purport. In summary, the purpose of the Krishna consciousness movement is in one sentence that he's summarizing in the end. By following the principles of this movement, one becomes disassociated from material mental concoction and is established on the original platform of the eternal relationship between the living entity and the Supreme Personality of Godhead as servant and master. As I have already mentioned, this servant and master is a loving relationship. Because naturally we are completely dependent on Krishna, and Krishna very happily very lovingly maintains us. Again, the same example, mother. The child doesn't have to ask the mother, please give me, please give me, please take care of me. No. Whether the child asks or does not ask, the mother maintains. And mother does so also out of love. Same way, Krishna maintains us out of love. Krishna completely maintains us. And it is only we, each one of us, who have forgotten Krishna or who are turned away from Krishna, who are envious of Krishna, who want to be separated from Krishna, though we cannot be, but Krishna creates makes an arrangement that we may think we are separate, we may think we are independent, we may think that we are alone, or we may think there is no God or there is no Krishna. These are all misconceptions as regards the soul, the spirit soul, individual soul. So all these misconceptions together are called ahankara. False ego means the sum total of all the misconceptions we are carrying with us currently. And this ahankara is changing. So for these misconceptions to be cleared away, we have to practice yoga. Abhyasa yoga yuktena. And the common method of controlling the mind is this Hatha Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga. But that is not very suitable for this Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga, the method is Harer Nama, Harer Nama, Harer Namaiva Kevalam Kalau Nasteva, Nasteva, Nasteva Gatiranyatha. Kali Yuga, only Harer Nama, the holy name of Hari. And holy name of Hari is essentially the practice of Bhakti Yoga. But that's the beginning. Chanting and hearing the holy name of the Supreme Lord Hari. But then, ultimately, all activities of the mind have to become spiritual activities of Bhakti Yoga. So, Savai Manak Krishna Padaravindayo. In the life of Ambarish Maharaj, we learn how he engaged all his body, his mind, his words, everything in spiritual activity, devotional service of Krishna. Spiritual activity means devotional service of Krishna. So how he engaged? First of all, the mind. Because activities of the mind are the basis of the activities of the speech and activities of the body. Everything starts with the mind. Everything starts with the mind. And the function of the mind is desiring. So, based on the desire, we do, we speak, we see, we feel, we think. Everything is based on the desire. So that desires have to become spiritualized. We cannot kill desire. Right now we have many material desires, but we cannot kill desires. We have to purify the desires. And that happens by beginning with chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And because we have varieties of activities, all those activities can be spiritualized by Krishna consciousness, practicing Bhakti Yoga in Krishna consciousness. And that is what exactly the Krishna consciousness movement is teaching everyone. If we practice this Krishna consciousness, the activities of the mind will completely change to spiritual activities. And then we develop the Krishna conscious mentality. And we are ready. Whenever death comes, we are ready to quit this body and never again accept another material body, but instead in our original spiritual body. As we engage in spiritual activities, our original spiritual body within is actually awakened and is developing. So this development, if it is complete at the end of this life, then in our original spiritual body, which is fully developed, we simply go to Krishna Loka. If it is not fully developed, then Krishna will give us another chance to continue the development of the spiritual body by continuing from where we left off in this life. In the next life, we will continue our spiritual activities to further develop more till completion. That is Krishna's mercy on us. Hare Krishna. I'll stop here. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.